Hi, my name is Aditya Vikram and I'm from the Green Wallet team. We are honored to be in A4S case competition at Rotman Business School. It would have been a pleasure to visit the school. Hopefully, we may do so in the future. Our original idea was a pension fund linked with sustainability, with investors being elderly people in the UK. However, after carefully considering the market context, we have decided to move our geographical region to Vietnam. We have changed our idea to what we feel engage larger community than we initially planned, make a bigger and collective impact, and hopefully you will find it more innovative. We are all students from Southeast Asia, and one of our team members is a research consultant in Vietnam. So we hope this presentation will bring out the best for this idea and for Vietnam as well. You might be curious as to why we chose Vietnam. Even though Vietnam is the fastest growing economy in South Asia, we believe that it has serious environmental problems. Problems like air pollution, poverty, climate change, and irresponsible consumption. It is also the most vulnerable country in terms of how climate change affects GDP as listed by World Bank. Vietnamese government has put in place policies for sustainable development. Still, it is ranked 54th amongst 162 countries in SDG index. There are lots of questions that we can ask. However, we want to ask the most relevant questions in terms of how innovation is being done in Vietnam for sustainable growth. How local people have supported the sustainable development goals, how are the companies supporting the sustainable development of Vietnam, and what are the barriers for local companies on that journey. We look at MNCs like Unilever and PepsiCo, and they have been doing their part in the background, mostly by cutting out on emissions, being more energy efficient, and using more sustainable uh, packaging for their goods. However, they are not really innovating to change the consumer behavior. On the other side, we have SMEs and startups, though very few in number, but they are doing much more to impact the consumer behavior and do sustainable growth. We have a company called Green Joy Straw that makes straw from grass and exports it to 30 countries. We have a startup called Refill Station where you can bring your own containers to refill shampoos, shower gels, cooking oil, herbal tea, etc. However, because these companies are very few in number, the impact on the larger population of Vietnam is not visible. Also, we need to encourage more innovation and more startups to come and make direct impact. And therefore, the barriers we feel are more related with we feel that the biggest barrier is the access to funds by sustainable businesses. We looked at the financial resources available in Vietnam and found the usual players. However, there are 100 organizations that are required to fund more than 2,000 startups and only 5% get funded in return. Out of these 5% startups, it is very difficult for sustainable businesses to be able to get funded because the returns on profit are lower. Also, the biggest investment is in terms of marketing for awareness rather than marketing for product, which is not a fair play in the market. We feel that making it easier for companies to access funds and bringing together a community of ownership and collectivism will help the startups to grow further and be able to make direct impact on the markets in Vietnam. In order to make the funds more accessible for sustainable businesses and inspired by Vietnam's culture of collectivism, we would like to introduce Vietnam's first equity crowdfunding platform, Green Wallet. On Green Wallet, the companies will be asked to submit their campaign application, undergo strict due diligence, and raise funds both from friends and family and from the investors available on the platform. Once the company hits the target for fundraising, they will have to issue equity certificates. These certificates will be distributed through our platforms. On the other side, investors will have to undergo a strict verification as well. We will be checking their genuinity and also their financial credibility. So what kind of companies will be able to raise funding on our platform? As we have said earlier, a must-have criteria for the startups is to provide products and services contributing to sustainable development. We don't want only fast-growing startups, but we want sustainable businesses that do not have high profit margins than the traditional industries. We need to understand that it is also about a cause. However, we still need our startups to be operating and selling products and services in the market for at least a year before they raise funds on our platform, and also show a little stable growth of at least 5% year on year. We would like to make it easier, however, we have to ensure our investors are properly informed at what they are investing in. We have segmented the businesses into 8 common themes, and these are listed as on this slide. This is linked with the strategy of the government of Vietnam for sustainable development, and that includes participation from the private sector, social sector, and also environment and governance. Let's talk about our investors. Even though we want all individuals in Vietnam to invest via our platform, we conclude from our research that young people between 20 and 34 are the best target investors. They are educated about sustainability and they are more willing to invest in for the future development. 80% of young consumers in Vietnam are willing to pay more for sustainable products. The young population is willing to take risk for sustainable growth and get lesser return on investment if it makes direct impact. This segment also has active investors who have good history of investment at banks, stocks, and other investment platforms, and are more attractive than others as they have a developed interest in investment for their future, no matter which business they invest into. Most importantly, this population is also willing to use the products and be consumers to the companies that would be part owners. Also, they are most active on social media and therefore companies can expect larger engagements if they are their consumers as well as their owners. As we mentioned, all companies will have to undergo strict due diligence. We outsource our due diligence for companies initially, and we try to create an in-house capability to do faster due diligence. Also, investors will have to undergo check for genuinity and their financial health, and this has to be the most important process before anyone can invest or ask for funding. Let's talk about impact. We feel that this is the most important criteria why anyone would invest on our platform. We will make it mandatory for companies to report their triple bottom line using multi-capital scorecard. We will combine this with consumer feedbacks to be submitted by the companies and verified by Green Wallet to give these companies an impact score. The investors will be able to make informed decisions on how we approached on this score and decide whether they want to invest in these companies or not. All companies need to have a context-based approach to sustainability reporting, and therefore Green Wallet, in order to report its own impact for the funds raised on its platform, would be aggregating impact per dollar for each business segment as we have spoken earlier. The same impact per dollar will be recorded for each individual investor as well on the platform and will be available in their private profiles. So how are we different? Well, we believe that we are not only different from other investment platforms in terms of our focus on sustainability, but also because we allow single investors to make small investments as low as $50. We do this because we want to build a conscious community. This has to be a collective ownership platform. Vietnam is a society that practices collectivism and therefore communities are supportive and loyal to each other. Our investors are customers of the startups at the end of the day. Their investment interest therefore indicates their consumption insights, which is an interactive way of startups to be engaged with end consumers. Startups not only make sustainable products in their own interest, but also make the products fitting consumer demands. On the operations sides, we'll be more efficient than current investment platforms because we will fasten processing of funding to 30 to 45 days. With faster DD while developing in-house capabilities to conduct due diligence, overall, we do all these things to open more chances to startups and engage more investors and the community onto our platform. As crowdfunding is an old concept, however, we looked at these two successful businesses, Mchanga from Kenya and Crowdcube from UK. How we are different is because of our focus on sustainable businesses and our focus on reporting the impact and putting it out in the public domain. This is our calculation on how many investment deals can be made via our platform. As you can see that we are conservative in our estimates and we start with only 10 deals in the first year. The deal values are estimated based on average investment amount that a startup in Vietnam can receive from a VC, a PE, or most recently from Shark Tank. As you will also notice that we are growing in terms of the number of deals as well as deal value as we progress. This we feel that we may have a network effect as we grow in the future. We report an internal rate of return of about 23% and we expect operating profit margin of 9%. We charge our consumers a commission of about 6% on every fundraising they do. There is also a consultancy fees that every startup will have to pay in order to undergo due diligence. However, we will initially waive off this particular fees to gain more traction. This is our projected cash flow statement, and as you can see that we might be profitable by the year 5. Here we list some of the risks. Well, the project has several risks, but we are considering policies and sustainability index as the biggest barriers. Crowdfunding already happens in Vietnam, but not fully developed in terms of regulation. We are hoping that as the industry develops, policies will consequently develop to follow that. Our team from Southeast Asia have experience in market entry strategy, legal, as well as we will utilize our network and relationship in Vietnam firstly to implement the idea. Sustainability index is controversial topic when it's not always accurate what sustainability means to every investor. But we will make it a standard in the most feasible way by referring sustainability index from the Vietnamese government first and make some amendments as we grow in business. This brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for listening to our innovative idea. We have a diverse team in terms of our cultural background and our work experience. But most importantly, we came together to make a small impact on sustainable development in the world, starting with Vietnam. Thank you so much.